I am excited to bring in Laura Jawad. She is an SEO strategist for female service providers and female founded small businesses. Laura helps entrepreneurs attract more clients through the power of their websites. Laura built two successful businesses through SEO, demonstrating firsthand the transformative power of well executed SEO in competitive markets. Armed with a PhD and a deep passion for helping women owned businesses thrive, Laura is the go to expert if you're ready to make your website the hardest working member of your marketing team. When Laura isn't creating SEO magic, you can find her working out in her basement gym, crocheting amigurumi, which I have to look up, or reading books to her kiddos. Connect with her on her website at Laura Jawad Marketing or on LinkedIn. I want to jump right in, Laura. I want to talk to you. Let's talk about some SEO tips specifically for solopreneurs and small business owners. I want to know, first of all, talk to me about what is SEO and why is it so important, especially for small businesses?
So SEO is it's search engine optimization. Okay. And, these days it seems like almost everything is a search engine. So my expertise and my passion is helping you get your website found on Google. So I just want to make sure we're all talking about the same SEO here. SEO is the art of getting your website to show up at the top of the Google results for relevant search queries. When your ideal customer client goes to Google and types in their pain point or the service they're looking for, you want to be the answer to that query.
And okay, so let's start out with for a small business. So, if you have a small business, you're obviously up against bigger companies. So, what can small business owners do to make their website Google friendly?
Awesome. I love this question because so much SEO advice is targeted towards larger businesses that have a marketing budget or a team, right? And there's assumptions about the amount of like work or money you can invest in your SEO. Small businesses are going to compete in a different space, right? We have to not really think about competing with the big brands, but think about like where is our corner of the internet. And so the places where small businesses can really show up are locally for their niche, what we call transactional keywords. So that thing that they do, the service they offer, their brands, those are going to be the places where they have like the advantage, right? And so for small businesses, it's so important to lean into local, to lean into a niche, to lean into those transactional phrases and optimize around them.
So local, okay, so let's say you have a product, you have a product, a brick and mortar, you're a real estate agent, something like that. That is local. So let's talk about for like an online business owner. Let's say like someone like me, right? So I provide video consulting, marketing consulting, public speaking coaching. So what would someone like me do to make it more Google friendly? So instead of pulling up somebody who's maybe bigger than me, I would come up for Google.
So are you serving your community first? Right? Like you're in New York City, right? And people in New York City need a video coach, right? They need someone to help them with their video marketing. And so you get in front of those people by one, using local keywords on your website. So talking about where you're from, right? Talking about the city that you live in, but also creating a Google business profile that helps localize you to New York. And then finally, making sure you're getting links from other local businesses. That could be other local media. It could be other, so I know with you, like TV is big. It could be podcasts, but it could also be other sort of allied professionals. So if there's other New York based copywriters, marketers, business coaches, if there's a way for you to get featured in their website, and maybe that's through a podcast, but maybe it's also through like an interview blog post or a resource page or something like that. But
Right. So we're
those
talking about
signals,
backlinks from other websites, verified businesses, so that they're linking back to you. Google's reading that as you're a legitimate person with a legitimate business that they should prioritize.
right? And when you get those links from businesses localized in your city, that starts to send a signal to Google that you operate there.
But here's my question, like for me and many other online business owners, I mean, I have some clients in New York City, but my clients are all around the country. Like it's a really very much like a consulting coaching business that is virtual. So what like I guess my question would be why lean into local if that's not necessarily a big percentage of my business base?
Because you could get more business that way. And leaning into local will not detract from your national or global presence. But for example, like if someone looks up video marketing in New York City, like there's going to be results that come up in that map pack, right? Underneath the map, there's usually 3 results. You can't show up there if you don't have a Google business profile,
Got it. You
right?
need that Google business to show up.
You need that to show up. And then these other things help confirm with Google that you actually live in this place. And so, everybody's got like different priorities. Okay. And so for a solopreneur, a business owner who's just trying to establish their online business, their online reputation, and they're not getting a lot of business from their website, leaning into local is a way to do that. It's one strategy, but it's a really effective strategy for people who really want to increase the amount of traffic they're getting from their website.
And what if I didn't want to do local? What would be another way for me to like, let's say I have a lot of virtual clients kind of all over the place, larger cities, smaller cities, whatever. What's another way that a small business like me might want to do that?
So the 3 things are going to be really dialing into those transactional keywords, like figuring out like what is that, we call it a long tail keyword. So like the most specific descriptive phrase of the thing that you do that people would be searching for, right? So you're not just a video marketing coach, you're a visiting video marketing coach for whom,
Small
right?
business
Like what?
owners, real estate agents, coaches, and
Yeah,
consultants. Mhm.
right. And so making sure that we are using those words on your website in the right places, making sure you have service pages optimized around those words, getting links to those pages, right? So continuing with the backlink building, even if it's not local links, like from all of your media. And then building content, right? Like creating content around questions that your audience might be asking before they know you're the solution, right? So thinking of SEO as part of your marketing funnel, thinking about those top of funnel buyers and what questions are they thinking about? What are their pain points? What are they searching for before they even know that, a video marketing coach exists, before they know you exist. So you can try to capture them with your long form content. That can be a blog. It could also be your podcast, right? As long as you are then taking your podcast and creating robust show notes, again, optimized around the keywords that you want to be found for and hosting that on your website.
So you said there were 3 things. So one is the long tail keywords.
And then content and links.
Long tail keywords, content, and links. So those are the 3 things you recommend for someone to be more Google friendly, get more SEO on their website. Long tail keywords, content, and links.
Yeah. And the content and the links are becoming more and more important. So once upon a time, you really could rank a website just with keywords, just by putting the keywords in the right places, on the right pages. There is a famous example. I should actually know the person's name, and I don't. But there was a contest a couple years ago about who could rank a website for some obscure medical term, and someone actually won the contest with a lorem ipsum website just by placing the keywords in like the right headings and the right titles, right? You can't do that anymore. Google is much more concerned now about your topical authority, how much of an expert you are, and you establish that with your content. And then also your brand reputation, and you establish that with your online footprint. And so that is backlinks, but it's also your like online reviews. It's also your social media presence. It's bigger than just your website now.
Talk to me about how does having additional types of content in your blogs on your website help you? So if I have a blog, I actually do, obviously. I have a blog on my site. I write articles. Some of my articles come from my podcast. Other articles are just fresh articles I do. And I embed video content in there and I embed podcast content in there. Does it help to put more content in blog posts on your website?
Yes, as long as you're strategic about it. So your website has a focus, right? Like you think about if you had to boil it down to like 3 to 5 words, like what is your website about, right? And then that is your site focus. And then you're going to have sort of the subcategories that you want to be known as an expert in. Okay. And those become your blog categories. So for me, for example, my site focus is SEO strategy and support. And the things that I want to be known as an expert in are SEO basics, content marketing for SEO, WordPress SEO. So then I have categories on my blog for those 3 things. Within each of those categories, I'm creating content and I'm linking that content together. And I'm creating content clusters around each of these areas that I want to be known as an expert in. And they all relate back to that main focus, right? That's how you build topical authority in each of these areas. And you keep it tight. When you start writing about too many things, you sort of dilute your site focus. It becomes less tight, and Google is less sure of what you are a topical expert in. And when you don't create these clusters, you're also not making it easy for Google to understand what you are an expert in, right? Like it needs help kind of seeing like the density of knowledge in certain areas. So creating content is great. And in general, creating more content is good as long as it is related to these categories, related to your offers, related to things that people are actually, your audience is actually asking questions about, their actual pain points. So it does need to be strategic. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Does it have to be, you're talking about clusters. And so I come from media. So we had to basically build an entire, I want to say like a structure of how we wanted things to come up. So we would have to do categories and subcategories. When I was overseeing the video unit at Us Weekly, we create categories of the videos and then say, if that, then this, if that, then this, and kind of, right. So when you're talking about clusters for blog posts, does it have to be super visible outward? Like for me, it would be like public speaking or, video making, or it's more that someone goes to your blog page and they could see this one's about public speaking, this one's about making a video, this one's about Instagram. Like when you're talking about the content clusters, does it need to be outward facing or just that they all fall under those topics?
So I'm not entirely sure what you mean by outward facing, but like
Meaning, does it have to say public speaking blog? You know what I mean? Or is it
no.
just has
So
to be the content topics?
when you tag a category, like when you create a blog post, you have the option of tagging a category, right? And I
Yeah.
shouldn't use the word tag because tags are separate from categories, but you have the option of placing it in a category.
Okay.
And oftentimes those categories are displayed
Mm-hmm.
on the blog so you can see what category the content falls into.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily have to have an explicit map showing people how
Right.
you're.
The different ones, but it's just that people can search for this and it goes under
Yeah.
that.
And I make it, on my own blog, I make it really easy if people, like when you go to my blog page, you just see all recent posts, but I make it really easy if you just want to look at content related to SEO basics, or if you want to see content just related to content marketing, or if you just want to see content related to, WordPress SEO, you can click a button and just see that subfeed.
Yeah. I have to look into it now. I'm like, ooh, I better write down the idea of categories. I mean, I know to make sure to put in like searchable search term, video making, confidence on camera. Like I put stuff in like that. My question to you would be there's, I started in media so long ago. We used to joke it's like as Google rankings and everything got bigger. When I was in media, we would joke like you want it to be sound like a human wants to read it, but you need to have good keywords, but you don't want it to sound too robotic. So what's the balance of making sure you're keyword heavy, but making sure it actually sounds like a person wrote it or it's for
Yeah.
a person?
So I think the answer is it doesn't need to be keyword heavy. It needs to contain the keyword in the title, probably in the introduction, maybe use it again in the conclusion, and then in like the SEO titles, meta description, but it should not be stuffed in there. Those days are long past. So I actually advise people to write the content without thinking about SEO, and then go back and make sure that your keyword is in the title, that it is in the introduction, that you've either used it in a subheadline or you've used a variation of that keyword in the subheadline. But with search engines becoming smarter and smarter and relying more on large language models, they're better able to infer what your content is about. And so it's better to write content that, and they're becoming more conversational, right? Like people are typing in conversational keywords into search, or they're using voice search, right? So it's more important that you create content that is thorough and helpful than it is to just jam keywords in there. Because another thing that Google looks at is user engagement signals. So they're tracking what people do on your site. So when people click on your website from the search results, they're looking to see how long do people stay, how far do they scroll, where do they hover, do they click to another page, all of these things. And so if someone clicks to your blog post or your show notes and it sounds like a robot wrote it, they're probably going to click back. No one wants to read that, right? And so you've got to write content that is appealing to people. It's always human first content.
If someone doesn't have a blog on their website, what do you recommend?
Start a blog. If you have a podcast, if you have a YouTube channel, you can use that content in the blog feature. There's a lot of different ways to use the blog. It doesn't need to just be like encyclopedic content or informational content, right? So it's a perfect place to archive and organize your show notes, to host notes about your YouTube episodes. And if you don't have a blog yet and you want to get found, your website to get found on Google, you need long form content on your website. But think about what kind of content you would enjoy creating. Because again, it doesn't have to just be informational, encyclopedic content. It could also be interviews. You could have an interview format. You can use it to showcase case studies about your work.
Yep.
There's so many different ways to use that space, but you have to use it.
Yeah. I'm taking notes. I'm like, ooh, and does it matter like different? So I have a podcast. I know other people have podcasts, and I have like one page for my podcast, which is chock full of information. Experts like you on SEO, an expert on newsletters, an expert on funnels. But then I also separately have a blog that's like basically just like my teachings of just me by myself. Does it matter that it's on two different pages, or it's just like it's all on robust? It's on your website as long as it's searchable. It's fine.
Yeah, it doesn't matter that it's on two different pages.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you recommend for in terms of social media? You were saying this advice obviously is for Google to have
Yep.
your website rank. How does this work with Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn? Obviously YouTube is searchable, YouTube and Google together. So I guess just talk to me about the relationship. Talk to me about the relationship between social media and having a good Google friendly website.
Okay. So we know, I'm gonna take a step back and talk about AI for a second, because I think we all know at this point, unless you've been living under a rock, that AI has completely changed the internet, right? Like the influx of low quality AI generated content has literally overwhelmed Google's capacity to index it all. And so they're trying to figure out, how do we make sure we're prioritizing content written by real experts who deserve to be writing the content that they're writing about, who have earned their expertise, right? They're looking for content written by real people. That doesn't mean, by the way, that you cannot use AI to support your writing. I want to be really clear right there. And that might take us down a different tangent, but they're looking for real people with real expertise, and real people have a footprint. Real people show up in more than one place, and real experts get talked about by other people. And that's why they're looking at your reputation. Now, from a high level, this is going to make sense to everyone, because when you do a search for any kind of broad search term, you're going to see the big brands at the top of search, right? That's because they have this strong brand reputation. Google trusts them. But even for our online service providers, when you are guesting on podcasts, when you are showing up on your social media platform of choice, and it doesn't need to be all of them, right? Pick one, pick two, show up sometimes. It's not that you need to be an influencer, but you have to have a footprint. And so that's where the social media ties in. It's not that you need, I'm on Instagram, I'm no influencer, right? I'm not good at social media. I'm good at SEO, but I have my Instagram, right, as a nurture. And it supports my SEO because it helps validate that I'm a real person, right? Same with my LinkedIn. But my main content that I create is on my website.
And then what is a mistake that people are making? What's the biggest mistake people are making when they think about SEO?
So I think one is still thinking that it's just about keywords, right? Thinking that it's all about keywords, that you can rank your website just with the best keywords, right? And you unfortunately can't without having like the knowledge base, the content base to back it up, and the brand reputation to back it up. You can have the most well selected, thought out keyword ever, but it's not going to do much for you in the absence of these other pieces. Okay. It all works together and creating like a virtuous cycle. The other thing I would say is that people are still stuck in this trap of thinking that all traffic is good traffic, right? Where in reality, traffic is a vanity metric, just like likes on an Instagram post. And so it's one of the reasons why I say when we're thinking about keywords, thinking about those long tail keywords, because you're going to get less people searching for them, but the quality of those searches is better. It's a higher purchasing intent, right? Higher commercial intent. And so we have to stop thinking about the goal as being just more traffic, but the goal as being better traffic.
People who serve maybe a niche audience, but in a wide area, what is the best way for them to kind of like niche down but not get lost, right? Like we were talking earlier, you were saying to me, I could go for New York focused businesses, get them to backlink me, do my Google business review page. But if I want to do video marketing consulting, video coach, public speaking coach, those are basically like the main keyword, social media marketing agency, right? Those type of words. Social media marketing agency is just going to have millions and millions of people trying to fight for that. So what is the best way to sort of niche down within those areas? I think there's a lot of people who are in the space of like, where their competitors are just vast. So locally is obviously better because like to your point earlier, you can be found, you can get your reputation. But I guess my question would be for business owners like me who are in areas where if I'm encouraging someone to search public speaking coach and I'm like, oh, I want to be found for that, or social media marketer, I want to be found for that. That's going to be very competitive. So what can I do to niche down to get visible for that?
I would encourage you to go to Google and play with their autocomplete box, right? And start typing in public speaking coach for and see what auto populates. And start thinking about which of those terms apply to you, right? And then thinking if there's any modifiers that you can put before public speaking coach. Like, I mean, kind of the easiest example, but also kind of the cheesiest example would be like best public speaking coach, right? Like, okay. But are there words that describe what you do in detail? And using the search bar is really helpful because anything that auto completes in the search bar represents searches that real people are entering into the search into Google frequently enough that Google is indexing those terms.
So then what do you do with that? Right. So then what do you do? Let's say I'm saying, okay, I want people to say like social media help or video help for online coaches, right? Let's say I'm doing, social media help for online coaches or something like that, right? Um, then, okay, I'm seeing in the search bar, it's saying best social media help for online coaches or video coach for online coaches, whatever, something like that. Okay. Then I'm seeing, okay, that's what it's filling in. Then what do I then do next to make sure I'm getting ranked?
Okay, this is going to sound really trite, but you have to use those words on your website.
Yeah.
So when I do website audits, the number one, let's say, mistake that people make that I see is people do not say what they do on their website. They talk around it. They assume people will get it, but the exact words aren't there. So if you want to get found for a certain phrase, you have to explicitly use that word multiple times on your website. And in particular, like if that was going to be the main term that you wanted to try to use, that needs to go above the fold on your homepage. It needs to go in those SEO
Right.
titles, right? It needs
Sure.
to be in the file names of one of your images. You need to put that
Hmm.
phrase
Yeah.
in multiple places on your website. And then I would also encourage you to create content that you can link back to that offer. So then if you have a service page for that offer, or you make a service page for that offer, make sure you're creating long form content around it. And then use that content as opportunities to link back to that service page, maybe in the call to action or in like, a little ad that you place on the page, like within the post. But making sure you are also linking as many pages as you can back to the offer that you want to be found for or the service you want to be found for.
I am going to do all of these things. Rather, I'm going to send my assistant a note and have him help me do all of these things. Laura, this was excellent. Let me know, how can people connect with you further about marketing, about SEO and content marketing SEO?
Yes, please reach out. So obviously you can find me on my website. That is my favorite platform, and that is laurajawadmarketing.com. And if you visit laurajawadmarketing.com/the-exit-interview, you'll get access to the SEO Kickstart Kit, which is 5 step-by-step checklists that will help you optimize your website, set up your website to attract your qualified leads on autopilot. You can also find me on Instagram at Hey Laura Jawad. And you can also DM me their exit interview and I'll send you the same.
Great. And then before we hang up, I want in one sentence your exit. I know you work for yourself. You teach people about SEO, but you had a different life before. In one sentence, tell me your exit.
I quit. Best decision ever.
And tell the audience what you were doing before.
So I'm a PhD trained oceanographer. And after that, I became a pregnancy and postpartum personal trainer. And now I am an SEO strategist.
Look at that. An exit, and an exit. Laura, thank you so much. This is such a great chat.
Thank you so much, Kim. I appreciate being here.